All right, so I get you guys all together today to talk about space planning and the workable layout. I think that we can agree that you know first step of space planning is throwing down a floor plan and some conceptual drawings that are an achievable budget. Is there anything that you guys see in your relationships with clients as well as your designers that are must do's, and then maybe a stretch or something that enhances the space planning process? And I'll let you take it from the top, Nick, if you got an idea in this from our earlier chat.
Yeah, so it'll be more refined this time. So our early on when we get into a conversation with the potential client, one of the biggest and most uncomfortable topics that we put right at the top is budget. It really stinks to get into an in-depth conversation where we're spinning a lot of wheels, talking about hypotheticals, only to bring that conversation at the end, and then dreams get crushed. So we like to talk about shopping within a certain budget range, and then in translation, we like to propose designs that meet those needs or match those budget ranges. And what that looks like for us is we typically design and present three different schematic plans early on in our design process that span the budget range. Now, our promise to our clients is that we'll deliver one uh, design within that budget range. We normally do two. It's very typical for us to do two. But the third one and the most expensive one, we pretty much promise to deliver that above and beyond that budget range. And there's a few reasons for that. One being that it's not our job to judge how much money a client has in their bank account, how much money they're comfortable with parting with. And then on our side of things, our designers are very artistically driven. They typically don't even like having money conversations. It usually makes them uncomfortable. And sometimes they can struggle with keeping their designs within the confines of a budget. We help them do that internally with our department communication between estimating and design. Uh, but we always tell our designers, hey, leave one drawing, leave one design concept to have no boundaries. So if they go into the home and they have a great epiphany and said, hey, if we did this, if we moved that wall, if we did this space would be entirely amazing, but it's probably going to cost too much. We say, go ahead and design that drawing. Now, when the clients come in for a design budget review meeting, we'll present the two projects or designs within the budget to them first, and then we'll save that expensive one for them last. And our goal for the end of that meeting and presentation is for them to say, wow, we've never thought of that. And that, is a really great statement. And in our heads, we go, we know we didn't think of that. That's why you hired us, because we're professionals. And in the end, people don't have a visual representation to help them with their decision making process. Once they can see something, and then they say, okay, it's going to cost us this much to get that achieved. That makes it okay for them to move forward with the spend. So, just in closing, I would say about 40% of our clients end up choosing the most expensive option, which is well beyond the initial budget that they discussed with us in the very beginning.
Yeah, so you show achievable, you show something a little bit nicer, and you're kind of letting them guide you towards what's where they really want to live in it, right? You're not handcuffing them right out of the gate, sounds like, and you're giving them a little bit of free range with your design team.
Give them some
John,
options.
yeah, you got John back there throwing a little jazz in it.
Only for them walking to the front entrance into the conference room.
Okay, okay. What about you
Until the
guys?
coffee is served.
Do you guys how do you treat space planning?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So, like Cornea, everything we do has to be budget driven. We like to know what are we working with. We working with a Lamborghini. We working with with a Honda Accord or something in between there. I like to use the reference of cars because there's a lot of purchases of vehicles that people do in lifetimes. There's not a lot of remodels that typically people go through in a lifetime. So it's easy to relate to that. All the bells and whistles of a vehicle is what drives the cost, the type of motors, the sunroofs, the power windows, the air conditioned or massage seats. It's no different in this type of project. So once we kind of understand what we're working with the budget, then we bring our designers in. Our designers, it's really up to them to understand and work with the client to get an understanding of how they utilize the space, the reason for calling us with their pain points, and then provide solutions to those pain points. We also offer three, excuse me, we also offer three different concepts in our initial planning stages, which usually shows different ways to accomplish those needs and wants of the project, and then also some bells and whistles. And like Courtney had mentioned, by showing those different concepts, you can usually plug and play some different pieces. Love the budget here, really love this one particular element. How can we take those different pieces and put them together? With the different softwares that we're using today, it really helps people visualize what the space could be, or kind of what the layout is with the 3D dimensional drawings that can be shown, which really allows you to kind of live in the space prior to actually building it, right? So it kind of helps make those decisions of, okay, if I'm standing here, this is how much room I have with another person here, or whatever it might be. So that's kind of how we start things off.
George and Chris, I'm assuming you guys are in the same world. It'd be kind of a reiteration of what these guys are talking about. I guess
I don't provide three
okay.
designs usually. Part of it is,
why is that?
Because usually in the process of talking to the client in their home, I'm trying to understand what the goal of their remodel is, not necessarily what they think their kitchen's going to look like.
Okay.
Sometimes if they have a very specific idea of, like, I want my kitchen to look like this, I'll usually ask, okay, is it okay if we show you that design, but then we also show you one where we think it might work well as to you as well.
Sure.
And I mean, sometimes we'll show them two. Typically what we do is we review the designs before they even get here and kind of come up with what we think is the best, and then we'll have another one and to show them in case they didn't particularly like that one. But I like it being a little collaborative. When they come in, this is what we present. What do you like? What do you not like? How can we make this better for you? Kind of tweak it from there. Sometimes we'll show them more than one. Sometimes I've found if you show someone more than one, it's analysis paralysis and they can't figure out what they want.
Yep.
So that's just ours. I know, like, Nick and Nick do a great job with theirs, and that's just how we choose to do ours.
Yeah, and we're very similar to what Gaylor just said, and we more or less will provide one design concept that is in line with what we originally established when we did the whole sales and initial budget and created that parameters of what we're trying to strike in. But kind of like what Cornea said, we also don't want to limit our designers' artistic ability. So there are instances where our designer will come to us and say, "Hey, have you thought about this? Because this would be a huge wow factor. What's a rough number for this that I could present to them?" And that again might be something like, all right, it's going to be an extra $50,000 or $100,000 if we go for this, over the top, design that somebody might love and want to fall in with. Because I agree with like what Cornea said is we want to be able to show them those options. We want them to understand the full capabilities of what's possible to do to their home, and it's up to them to decide if they want to move forward with that or not. Kind of taking the inverse though of what we haven't really talked on yet is why we are all design build firms. And we're all design build firms because we can then provide guidance to our clients to get what they want, stay within the budget if they want to or not. I think all of us can probably speak to the opposite, where a client has hired an architect or somebody else first, only for us to come back and shoot their dream down. Because I can't tell you how many drawings I've reviewed over the years where an architect drew something that was beautiful and it was, myself, a few other builders look at it and go, "Hey, that's $1.5 million project," all for the homeowner to come back and say, "Well, my budget's only 600,000."
Yeah.
Well, who led you down this road for this long where you spent that much money on these drawings to where you went that far, out of what you intended to do? So that's why we're all set up as design build firms, so that you have somebody coaching you and guiding you throughout that whole process to make sure that you can build something within your budget. But if you want to explore some of these other options to go above your budget and there's a good reason to do so, then that's up to the client to do so. But it's not something we want to, for lack of better terms, jam down your throats.
Yeah. Yep. I've kind of played on both sides of that. I've gone through where we used to do, 3 different designs, 2 in the wheelhouse and then 1 stretch goal. And then we've kind of got back to here's a workable, layout within the budget. We've, tried to pre-position ourselves to meet all of these goals. And then what I found is as you start transitioning from space planning to project design, and you're starting to get into kitchen cabinetry and door swings and hardware and hooks and that stuff, I feel like the plans start to move a little bit more. Okay. And that's where the budget is, still shifting a bit, but that's where some of these other conversations come in. That's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to eliminate this door and put a window here because I have a piece of furniture that I didn't think about when we were just looking at the conceptuals as well as the floor plan. But now that I'm like thinking about my faucet and the color of that matches that, I think it starts to open up more of these conversations, and it really is it's an open door to their project. And I think that that's where things start to either stay in line with your original space plan and on budget, and you can achieve it, or sometimes they kind of go down the next phase of renditions. um, and I found we don't want to draw this 5 million times and have 6 million different versions out there getting priced, and then it becomes very confusing, right? We want to be able to kind of lock all this up into one package and say this is the job, so that you're not losing an SK sketch or page 2, and only the homeowner knows about a window that they want changed or something like that. I don't know what you guys think about that, but it seems like they start to drift a little bit in my world in between the two. That's where some significant changes might establish in the budget. Sometimes it's things that are like stylistic. You guys ever deal with these nano doors?
2 in my office.
Okay, what's one of those going for these days, right?
Depends on the manufacturer, the size, the level.
Yeah.
Anywhere from, they're roughly, I think they start at maybe just under $1,000 a foot, and they go up from there. And that's just the material cost. And install is not easy.
No, and I think a lot of times you gotta lean on the vendor to do the install, especially where I'm at. Like they all want to do their own installs. Say you have a 16-foot door, they're like, you're not touching this thing. We're putting it in.
I wish they would do that. That'd be fantastic.
Better that way.
They just send it to you in a bunch of parts and say, good luck, watch this video.
Oh yeah, see, that's something they, the vendors around here don't let the general population touch. But that's one of those things that it's got to get sussed out at some point. Is that space planning and going to project design, picking windows? That could be a swing of 40 grand. Like how you skin that cat.
But that point and what George was talking about as well, as I think in the industry, just I've been in the industry my entire career, has only been focused in residential construction. I feel like there's a industry shift happening right now where, maybe you guys remember 10 plus years ago, people were still asking you, well, what the hell's a design build firm? And now it's been flipped to where people are specifically only seeking out design builds. And part of the reason is the frustration of the lack of clarity between design and construction. The traditional method of hiring an architect and then getting a set of plans and bidding them, and then you get the bids back and they're too high, and then the client's like, well, I need to scale these drawings down, and the architect's like, okay, I can do that for you, but it's going to cost you more money. And it's this cyclical cycle that happens, and finger pointing. And I see a lot more people come into, anyway, as far as in our area, they're coming to companies like ours, and they're looking for guidance in combination of budget with the design and total outcome of the project. I really see a shift moving in a positive way, to where we're becoming the capstone of the process in our industry as opposed to the architect. And architects are kind of staying more into the commercial world in that regard.
We're similar, where we're getting more and more people seeking out just design build. And a lot of the reason is they just want a one-stop shop because it's also easier overall for them. And I mean, going through a remodel is pretty rough. So any way to make it easier for the clients and keeping it all under one roof. Usually the people that are the ones searching for it are the ones that went through a remodel the first time and had an architect and a contractor and a interior designer and all this other stuff, and they're like, that sucked.
Yeah, everybody might play together, but you're not on the same team from the huddle, right? So like, you got to start this thing out of the gate with an aligned team. 100%. Like you guys are the ones putting together the budget that's like got the square footage of countertops. You know how much it costs. The year to year prop 2.5 of windows, right? Like every year windows go up 2.5%. You could have a quote 6 months ago that's now off. So you got your finger on the heartbeat. We're working on a job right now that the wide oak floors, the wide white oak floors are getting spec'd, and we traditionally do here 3.25, just because there's so much movement and the temperature here on Cape Cod and humidity. And the glue alone to put these floors down is like 50% of the cost of the other material that's an inch and a half less, less wide.
And double the labor cost.
Yeah, and it's those are those things that it's like, let me help you navigate geographically where you live, as well as installation and budget. And at the end of the day, like, you might never even notice how wide your flooring plank is because of all these other awesome things that are going on in your house. That could be your wolf stove, right? All right. Where does space planning get super challenging for you guys as you start maybe revising it? Do you have big creeps and costs that are like seem minuscule that, like we talked about this window? Where do you see that kind of changing gears a little bit in your guys' world?
My biggest is when the client tells you one thing and then they go out and pick something that's 4 times the cost. That they're like, oh, I just want something simple and basic, and I don't need high-end appliances. And then all of a sudden they come back and you're like, whoa, what happened in that conversation we just had 30 minutes or a week ago? But window stuff is less of an issue. We actually had that conversation ahead of time about what style of window are you looking for and discussions with that. But typically a lot of the overage is by the clients not realizing what they're doing when they make those selections. And that's part of it, is educating them like, hey, you went and picked this. Are you okay with that? Because I'll do whatever you want, but you need to realize that this just went over the budget we discussed, and kind of helping them navigate that.
I was talking to a builder buddy last week before we got pounded with this snowstorm that absolutely crippled the Northeast here. And they're building a bunch of houses in this area. And, a big topic was like the roof line construction in these places. So they're all vaulted ceilings. You have like this big open kitchen into a living room, and then it's like cathedral all the way through the second floor with catwalks and some pretty cool features. But the roof framing packages are, just for the lumber, coming in at like $65,000 to $100,000 to make it all cathedral and LVL and self-supported without these, ceilings or, attic spaces, if you would. And I think sometimes the design intent that way is a really big swing factor, right? You want to achieve say here a Nantucket dormer in your second floor and have it all cathedral and open. It now becomes an engineering exercise, right? Those kinds of things, I think, work the needle a bit here.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I looked at a project yesterday, very similar thing, depending on how the engineer designs the steel beams, because there's going to be a beam going on top of another beam. I was telling the architect that was involved with that, I was like, it's going to make a major cost difference if he puts this one beam below the other beam to then goes out onto 2 footers versus if he keeps the one beam up and the other beam down. Because involved with that was a whole bunch of plumbing and electrical that needed moved if it was done one way versus the other. And then the other way would have also impacted us breaking out a larger area of footings that would have then gotten into their driveway for us to just be able to put the footings in. So I was looking at almost like a $10,000 to $15,000 cost difference depending on how the engineer designed it. So I was telling them, hey, we really need to push it this direction because there's a major difference. Structurally, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to accomplish the same thing. You're going to see the same thing from inside the home. But what we have to move in order to make one work versus the other was a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a butterfly effect, right?
Correct. And that's where, again, having us involved in the design build process is a major win for a client to have versus somebody else that's just doing it, not really knowing the construction implications of what goes on behind that.
All right. What are you guys working on right now that's super exciting, and anything fall in this space planning category? Like is there anything that you guys want to share about?
We just finished up a cool elevator project.
Okay.
Like a interesting couple. They were great to work with. They live in the mainline area of Philadelphia. And they have an 8,200 square foot home, and it's just the two of them. And they're like, yeah, we've decided we're going to stay. We want to age in place here. They do financially really well. And they're like, I want a freaking four stop elevator in my home. So it goes all the way, goes from the basement, goes to the first and second floor. And then on the third floor, before we started this elevator project, we did a shed dormer addition that was probably ran the length of about 150 feet or so. So it gave them a lot of more usable access in their attic. It kind of converted to like an office / guest suite. And then we went ahead and built this entire full elevator on the outside. And it was a pricey project. I want to say it was somewhere like around $300,000+.
It was on the outside.
It was actually around. It was on the outside. Yeah, it was like a 400. It was $390,000. We had to dig Big
pit.
foundation, big pit, underpinned the foundation. It was quite a lot of work. Cool outcome though.
Yeah. I was just before you said outside, I was just thinking about, oh my God, putting an elevator in the middle of the house that's already built is got to be a freaking nightmare, right? Because you got a pit. Now you got to like get all the
It
continuous
was like a
framing.
commercial job almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's cool. So I've worked on a couple of jobs with elevators, and they're funky, man.
We're actually posting a video about it today on our social.
Okay.
We've
Check it
done
out
2
there.
elevator projects. They are always interesting.
Yeah.
I got a
Yeah,
buddy
but
that's
right now we're capturing space from someone's existing master bedroom
okay.
and turning it into outdoor space, which I've never taken away square footage from a home. So that was a little different, but
First or
it's
second
fun.
floor?
First floor.
Okay, so will the second floor hang over this outdoor space?
There is no second floor. It's
Okay.
all single story. It's just their bedroom was huge and it had a sitting area and they never used it and they wanted a covered sitting area for outside. So kind of built some new exterior walls and opened up the old exterior walls and are creating a place for them to sit. And then across from it is an outdoor kitchen, which that's normal around here, but I've never reduced square footage from a home before. So
Oh, that's cool.
that was
Did
kind
you
of-
just raise the wall height and cut the rafters back, or reframe the whole roof?
Nope, roof stays. The roof is staying exactly as it's where it was vaulted, so it kind of is staying vaulted. And we didn't have to raise anything. Just we're pouring a new foundation under the new exterior floors, mostly to just keep it separate from the underfloor of the main home, just so if anything ever gets under there, they can't crawl under the house. But other than that, all the walls are the right height, the roof's the right height, just
Let it rip. Cool.
cutting out of the square footage.
Well, you got the weather to hang out outside, right? Like it's an all year event.
But yeah, that's the big thing is we do a lot of outdoor stuff. I've just never done something like this. So
Yeah.
I didn't even know what permit to submit for that. I was like, I'm gonna have to ask the town because it's like a reverse edition.
Yeah, get the assessors over here, and we're reducing square feet.
Hey, yeah, reduce the no one's gonna want to hear that. So.
Not at all. What about you, George? You got tell me about this beam job. What's going on there?
So they basically are trying to eliminate a 2-car garage and turn it into a 1-car, larger door so they can get stuff in and out easier. And then they're also putting an addition above that space. And so if you can imagine the one beam, going left to right for all the joists going front to back, then with the new beam that we're going to have to put to make the garage door opening wider. But inside their garage is where they have a lot of their mechanical stuff going through. So they've got an old boiler system that has a bunch of the lines going below the beam. They've got some gas lines coming in from outside the house because this home was built in the 70s. So it's kind of very haphazardly all passing through the garage. And so depending on how the engineer designs that, again, is where it impacts all of that radiator work, all of the plumbing there, all the gas lines that are affected with it. So it makes a big difference to me as to how that beam is actually set and installed. And then what, winds up happening as far as digging that footer and how it may then break into the driveway and everything else, because it's going to be a huge beam that goes across that whole area. And it's something that, again, this was an architect-driven project that they hadn't really taken into consideration as to how that's going to be done. And so that's where we had to provide guidance to our client and tell them that this is the best way for this to go so that you don't have an extra $10,000 to $15,000 moving stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be moved if we can just design it the other way around.
So now you guys are into what, redrawing the thing, pricing it again, the whole deal?
We left that as a variable for now until we have the engineering back, but my goal was to push the engineer to do it in that manner so that we didn't have to spend all that other additional money to get that stuff done. So just something that nobody had really thought through until we put our eyes on it.
I'm working on a beam issue right now too, where during space planning, we have a room that's going above a garage. So we're going to have like a flat garage space with a, membrane deck, kind of widow's walk deal. And then we're adding an addition above the existing mudroom and straddling the garage. But to do an open living room kitchen, we're going TGIs on the second floor, like real big 16-inch guys, for full span. And now to move this addition perpendicular the way that we originally drew it, we have to stuff all kinds of beams, then do an overframe on it, and to continue the ceiling height. And that change has been, a pretty substantial. Just flip it 90 degrees has been a a headache that I'm chasing pretty hard. So these little things do kind of catch up, but it's fun to work them before it's too late and you're, got this thing all torn apart and you're ready to go frame it. And you're like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Change order city, I guess. Right. That being said, I think that what we're doing in these multi-steps, do you guys find any change orders other than customer driven stuff that you're doing in projects, maybe upgrades as they start getting to this spaces, or do you find those change orders start sussing out pretty early on and get recaptured in the budget before contract?
I'll jump in on that. I think the beauty of the process is that it allows the homeowners to make so many decisions on the front side while we're doing the design work, while we're making selections, and we're understanding, since the selections are primarily made prior to starting the project, you understand, okay, hey, if I purchase that diverter valve and now I'm doing the body sprays and the additional shower heads or the rain head from the ceiling, you're able to make those decisions while you're making those selections versus after the plumber's already roughed in just a standard valve or something like that, and then they got to come back in and change it.
Or,
so I think the design,
I need a booster pump, right? Like
right, for sure.
Low water pressure. Yeah.
I think understanding the goals with the products that you're putting into the house really helps minimize the change orders. Obviously, things do come up. This is remodeling. Some of the homes, I'm sure in your guys' areas, they're a lot older than they are here, but you can be in a house that's had multiple people jacking with things inside a wall, and until you open it up, you didn't anticipate something being there. We really dive in and bring our trade partners into the home throughout the design process to make sure that we're trying to minimize as many of those surprises as possible. But inevitably, until you open up the wall or until you dig a hole, to put the addition in, you may not know what you don't know. But I have found that the projects move faster. I have found that the change orders have reduced since adapting the design build process because we've eliminated so many surprises. We've spent more time on the front end understanding the needs and goals of the client so that they're not making those changes or decisions on the fly. The decisions on the fly, in my opinion, creates the biggest source of change orders. But inevitably there still are some. You stare at a wall and you found something new 3 months into the process that you really want to incorporate in, and obviously we want the clients to get the most out of these projects, so we allow them to incorporate that in. But change orders definitely have reduced.
I agree with that 100%, and especially the important part of bringing your trades in ahead of time. If you start cutting some holes in drywall, you can really uncover a lot of problems ahead of time. We're about to start a kitchen here in another week, and typical older house had the bulkhead above the cabinets. Sometimes those bulkheads are empty. Sometimes they have plumbing in the way. This particular one had plumbing in the way and a plumbing stack. The water lines, of course, are easy enough to move, but the plumbing stack, in this case, to achieve the design that we wanted to get, we had to essentially build the cabinetry around that. So we had a nice utility cabinet that we were able to build a false panel inside the back of the cabinet to be able to incorporate that plumbing stack. That, to your point, Nick, had we started this project, we would have been sitting there and been like, oh no, now what do we do?
And the thing's cast iron and you got to take it all the way down to the, the basement or something.
Right. So now we already know what we're gonna hit when we open the wall and actually begin demo, and it's already accounted for. We're already gonna have all the materials. The plumber has seen it. The plumber knows what to do. To your point, sometimes too, by having the trades in there, ahead of time of, oh yeah, hey, we do need a booster tank, or hey, did you notice your pressure reducer valve, has a leak to it or something like that. So it's small things like that you can identify a lot of different things that might need to be done ahead of time, or your electrician notices that the panel's full and you're going to need a sub panel, and all those different things that may get identified before you even start the job. But the trade day is a huge thing for us to uncover a lot of that stuff, so that when we do go to final contract, most stuff typically is customer driven, and it's not something that we're going to shock them with a change order unless for some reason there's some mold or termite damage or something that really was unforeseen. But that's usually pretty rare.
We see a bunch of change orders and starting to show concepts, materialize later. So like maybe that fireplace wall ends up getting shiplap around it, or crown molding makes its way around, the living room and the kitchen, like fun stuff or upgrades that, as we suss out the budget, maybe weren't as important. And as we narrow down through allowances to final selections, I find some of these little fun things start popping back up, or an additional built-in or something like that, as opposed to your point, hey, we never explored this wall cavity or looked below it, and just kind of ran with it. The drawings are the drawings, and we're going off of that, and anything else is whatever. I think getting your hands on this early on is so important.
Well, doing that early also gives the client the opportunity to pivot on a potential design element. Hey, now that I need that sub panel, or now that I have to move that plumbing stack in order to incorporate this design, that's going to cost me an extra 10 grand or whatever it might be. Let's go ahead and pull this other feature out. That's not as much of a priority as the design was. And I want to make sure we're holding true to the layout of the project. And so given the homeowners the ability to make those decisions without a gun to their head, so to speak, where you're in the middle of the project, the house is torn up, everybody's waiting, somebody's coming tomorrow. If you don't make this decision right now,
I get no idea what my budget is. Like,
right. No idea what it's going to cost, but we got to know right now. It's too much of a high stake pressure situation, that being able to make those decisions on the front end really just smooths the process out and makes it a little bit more of an enjoyable process once the construction starts.
All right. Anything you guys are seeing trendy wise this year that you're trying to incorporate into your designs that you're kicking off? Is there any buzz in the design aspect in the office? What are those guys jazzed up about these days?
A big increase of inquiries for aging in place.
Yeah.
I just mentioned, we got done with that elevator process, which was, pretty, or project that was part of that theme. But more and more we're seeing, just with the price of real estate being where it is, interest rates not being much better, we're seeing a lot more people saying, yeah, I don't think we're going to sell our house and move to Naples because real estate down there is too expensive, and real estate up here is expensive, and we got a good interest rate and equity in our home. So that's definitely, there's been an uptick of people, number one, just either staying put and not selling and just renovating rather than moving. And then secondly, living in place, aging in place. People saying, yeah, the last move we're going to make is the pine box move. And we go, okay, cool. We'll try to make that as comfortable as possible for you.
The pine box.
Yeah, and I'd say for us, and this is concept that's been around for 5 years, so I don't want to say this is necessarily a new design concept, but the wet rooms have really kind of seemed to pick up in popularity, where for those who don't know what a wet room is, it's where you are essentially creating a massive shower and putting the tub inside of there as well. So it's just one big space. So we've seen an uptick in those requests.
Can you imagine trying to do that 20 years ago with friggin' concrete board and Red Guard or some shit?
Oh, forget it. There wasn't even any Red Guard then, I don't think.
There wasn't, right? Oh my God. It's that's so friggin' cool what you can do with all those Schluter products, and integrate your glass into the tile, and wet rooms. Those tubs are a pain though, aren't they?
They are, and making the whole floor essentially level but not level, so that you can still get everything pitched to drain is
away from the tub and towards the drain and around the corner.
You're correct. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that, but it's definitely a nice concept and something that our clients are asking for more.
Okay, that's sweet. Anybody else got anything crazy like that?
I wouldn't say crazy, but I feel like almost every project or house we're doing, the new stature is having a gym in your house. So I feel like more and more we're creating spaces that have gyms in them. I mean, we're doing additions to create them, and golf simulators and stuff like that. I feel like more people are investing into their homes to stay in their homes. I mean, I think that's kind of been a thing since post-COVID, whether it's gyms or it's saunas or it's offices or whatever it is. People are setting themselves up to be in their home,
Right. Yeah, I think that the shift is definitely, the entertainment inside, the exteriors is kicked off again. I feel like people are hanging out at their houses. They're going back to cooking in their kitchens. I think for a while people, they had a nice big, call it a professional kitchen, but now I'm getting people that are more fixated on actually the elements in that kitchen and caring about what the burner layout is and how the oven actually works, as opposed to, it just being a fixture there. Right. So I do think people are coming home and staying there. I think you're right.
Another cool project too, but it's personal. It was from my own house. We built the walk-in humidor.
Oh,
we just finished it up last week. It was pretty cool. So it's all Spanish cedar, a wall-mounted, plumbed in humidifying unit. It keeps it around 67 to 68% humidity. I'm a big cigar guy, so it's just nice.
Yeah.
I use one of those bookshelf Murphy doors as a door. So it's like in my office. So you just go to the bookshelf, you walk in the humidor, grab a big fat stogie, and then go outside and enjoy.
I was going to ask you, did you put the smoke eliminator in there and a nice leather chair?
No,
Or
I
are you
don't.
going
So I don't
outside?
smoke in the house. I won't do it. So
Yeah.
I always, even when it's cold out, I like hang out my garage door with the lawn chair there, sipping a bourbon, and
I was
smoking
going to say a
cigar.
little brown liquor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
freezing my ass off, but it's all right.
Oh, that's so cool.
Friends around the corner.
Nice. I'd love to check out a picture of that, or maybe even get a tour one of these days, and
Yeah, man, I'll text you
press
some
Toro
video.
out of you. Yep,
Yeah.
that's cool. Have you guys done some golf simulators?
I've been
People do
requested
them
a
in
few.
their
I haven't
backyard
done one
out
yet.
here.
Sorry, Chris.
It's all right. It's just people do them in their backyard out here. I have one in my backyard. It's easy.
You need
Yeah,
to
we
We don't get snow, so we don't have to worry about it.
We just built a pool house, and it was all designed around a golf simulator. It's pretty sweet.
No, that's sick. Now, did you guys have to get a specialized company to come do all the the computer stuff and the AV component of it?
Yeah, we ran essentially all the wiring, low voltage wiring behind the walls for them, and put outlets and power in places. And then they came in and installed all the screen and the padding on the walls, and then the turf on the ground, and the projector from the ceiling, and so on and so forth. But the space was all set up and ready for them, so it was almost a plug and play for them.
Cool. What's so you got the golf simulator in the pool house? You got like a little head or a bathroom out there and a little bar or something? What's that
Yeah,
look like?
kitchenette, garage door that opens up so that when you're in the kitchen area, you can serve the outside, or people can sit up to the bar from the outside. That's pretty cool. We just wrapped it up.
That's bad. Yeah. So sick. That concludes this podcast of Space Planning Workable Layout. You can find Chris Gaylor, Nick Cornea, Nick Shepard, and George Cowles' websites on the links below. And we look forward to hearing us again on the Cape Cod Craftsman podcast. Thanks again.